Hi, this is Dina for Splitcoaststampers. In this video, I've taken inspiration from one of our archived tutorials and given it an update with a video. So thank you to Beata Johns for your inspiration. This is a faux watercolor technique that is done by stamping inked stamps onto wet paper. So you'll need a solid stamp, and I like to do this technique with leaf stamps. I'm using Korean markers, which are water-based, but you can also use any dye ink product that you like. Your dye ink pads, distress, and oxide pads will work wonderfully as well. If you use multiple colors like I'm doing here, be sure to work from light to dark. I'm going to mist my watercolor paper, and I want enough water that the paper is holding it on the top of the paper and it's visibly damp from the misting, so that droplets of water are connected, but the paper is not dripping wet. Wetting the paper is going to cause it to curl, so I also spray the back side of the paper to counteract that curve and help it stay down on my work surface. I'll stamp my inked image onto the paper, and the ink is going to travel along that network created by the misted water and feather out when the stamp is lifted. The rest of the background is going to be completed by repeating those steps. So I'm cleaning off my stamp each time to remove the water and ink, and I'll create a new blend with my markers. You can experiment with different papers. Beata used cardstock for her tutorial, and cardstock will usually pull some ink down into itself, so you'll get some more defined impressions with your initial stamping here. You can also vary the amount of water that you add. You can see that as my paper sits, the impressions are getting a little more defined as I go. I like that variation, but you can also remist your paper as you see the surface starting to dry. That will give you more space to work in and also revive your stamped images that might be a little more defined than you want them to be. You can also usually stamp more than once before re-inking. It just depends how vibrant you want your full background to be. If you have some small spots that need color, you can also use your finger to lift and dab ink from one area to another. You can let your panel air dry, or you can give it a little help with a heat gun. And then I like to use a coordinating outline image to stamp over the panel to give it some depth. So I'm going to use these outlined leaves to stamp kind of randomly over the panel. And I'm using Distress Oxide ink, which stamps really nicely. Once my stamping is done, I'm going to mist lightly again, and that will soften the outlined images and also add a little more texture to my background. Once I blot the panel with paper towels, you can see the little spotted texture that is left when that activated ink is lifted away. Here's my completed card. I used a die to cut my panel down for a mini slimline card and added a little sentiment tied with some wax thread. I hope this gives you some inspiration for your fall cards, and I thank you so much for watching.